Welcome to Big Brave Business. This is the podcast where we answer big questions reshaping entrepreneurship. I'm Sarah K. Heeter, and this is Season 3. Each week, I'm bringing on my friends, mentors, and some of the best thought leaders I know. We dive into bold, values-driven conversations about leadership, equity, ethics, and building businesses that actually make a difference. Ready to do business better? Let's dive in. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm joined by a new friend, and it's one of those situations where we were just chatting about what we're going to talk about, and both of us were just mutually like, okay, yeah, we have so much in common. But first and foremost, welcome to the podcast, Courtney Shaw.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I feel like it was pretty easy for us to find our conversation. I love that.
To be honest, you had me at your pre-studying before we jumped on the call that you were like, dear AI bot, please tell me what I've said that is anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
I need to prep for this conversation.
It's been a lot of stuff. So it was good. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm glad that.
Just give me a recap so that I can go in fresh. You had me at that because not only, first of all, obviously we use AI in very similar ways. Secondly, that's some shit I would do. Yeah. And thirdly, the actual responses you got, I was like, oh yeah, we're cut from the same cloth. So
good.
Let's just start there. When you're kind of self-identifying as an anti-capitalist entrepreneur, what kind of comes up for you, or what did Claude tell you in a cheat sheet?
Yeah, it's been such a journey to realize that that's what it is, because I think it's teasing apart what is. I know I heard you talking about this in a previous episode, we live in a society where we require money, and we live in this society. So figuring out, it's easy to pendulum swing from buying into it entirely and then rejecting everything to a point where you're suffering. And so I think a lot of us, I've been in business for a really long time, since 2011. So my kind of midway through business at this point was COVID, right? And that changed everything. So that was a big pendulum swing for me. And then coming to this place of being okay, what is me operating inside of this system? What is me understanding, almost being a chess player and being this is the game I'm playing. I'm not going to be a pawn in it. I'm going to be a grandmaster and figure out how to use it to my advantage, while also trying to cause no harm, which I don't think is possible in a capitalist system, but as little as possible, but not obsessing over that to a point where I'm keeping myself really small and overthinking. And it's a lot of thinking that happens around this. So some of the things that were coming up for me recently, I think about and talk about with my clients a lot, this concept of middle class brainwashing, and how we have all basically been raised to be cogs in a wheel. And mostly everything, just all this stuff that's come out in recent. I am American originally. I grew up in Michigan and now I live in Canada. So I've had some very interesting perspectives on all of that, but just all these things that have come out that make you question everything you ever knew. And then going, oh, we all our entire upbringing and school system was just propaganda in a lot of ways. So that's been a big thing for me. And then learning concepts, what I'll do is I'll voice memo kind of what I'm thinking. I'll upload it into Claude and have Claude kind of tell me what is the concept that's already established that I'm talking about? Because I know that I'm not talking about something that's never been noticed before. So what is this? So things like the precarity creep, this idea, because something that's been coming up for me a lot is I'm 38, this idea, being a millennial, we were all raised in the glorious 90s of ignorance is bliss and just everything's abundant and we have the greatest childhoods ever. And then our adulthoods are just utter trash can, shit on fire, horrible and so hard. And we're all just have a smile on our face, just well, I'm just going to work harder and double down. And it's just, and I'm is anyone else losing their minds? I have 2 little kids. I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, in Vancouver. It is untenable. I don't know how anyone else is surviving. I have a lot of support. I have a lot of resources. I don't understand. So this concept of precarity creep, that economic instability has migrated up the income ladder. So people who would have in the 90s been even upper middle class are now living paycheck to paycheck. essentially,
Yeah.
because that's just what's happened in our economy.
It's so interesting. I wasn't familiar with that term, precarity creep, and I think it's really cool. First of all, let me just say, I think it's really cool how you approach that. This is, I think, a really cool use case for AI to have the understanding and the awareness that, like, we're not having original ideas. So, can you help me explore this? And at this point, like, also, it's not, yes, it's going to reinforce what you already think. Yes, it's going to do that. But it's also going to be like, here's additional resources, here's additional reading, here's
Mhm.
additional podcast episodes to go listen to so that you can really like explore this topic or these concepts and really take it a step further. And I think previously we relied on like somebody to have already had the forethought to make a blog post to say, you're searching for these terms. Now I've captured you in the like SEO algorithm. So now I can tell you, here's additional resources I've gone and gathered, but I'm only human and I have limited experience and I have limited like opportunities to be able to and resources to be able to search and find additional resources for you. So everything's going to be biased. I'm not saying AI is not biased, but I think
Yeah.
that's a really like cool opportunity for us to leverage AI, especially when we think about like how it's used in academic settings and the like kind of danger of that. But without getting too far down a rabbit hole of that, I want to actually come back to the actual concept of what you're saying of like this precarity creep. And I think one thing that one of my best friends who's not an entrepreneur yet and I always talk about is with buying a house. So neither of us
Yeah.
owns a home in the city that we live in. Like what we feel frustrated by is that creep that is the goalpost keeps moving. And so we're
Yep.
like, okay, here are the benchmarks that I need to hit. Here's a 3 to 5 year plan for me to actually go ahead and save that amount of money to get my credit score to that point, to get my debt to income ratio to a certain point, et cetera. And then by the time we get there in 3 to 5 years, those goalposts have completely moved. And it's like, I mean,
Yep.
it's not, and not just moved a little,
Mhm.
moved like, I literally don't know how that would be
The
possible.
math
So,
doesn't math for us. It
yes.
doesn't math.
Yes.
It's really a zero sum situation, right? It's like if you do the algebra on affordability and opportunity and salary in any way you cut it, the math doesn't math. It
Yep.
just doesn't.
Yep.
And that for me was it's so frustrating, but I find it so helpful when I realize it's not me, it's the system. And
Yes.
it's frustrating because I like to feel like I have some power to do something and change it. And I don't like it. And I do, but not right this second. That's a real problem, right?
Yeah.
But it also takes the burden off of me. And as a mom of two like little kids who are 4 and 2, of like, no, this is really effing hard. This
Yeah.
is unbelievably challenging. And
Yeah.
I was an entrepreneur for well over a decade before I had kids. I thought I'd figured it out. I cannot believe how hard it's been for me economically. And I literally, I call my mom every week. I'm like, I don't know how other people do it. I don't know how it's possible. I truly don't. And I just want more people to talk about that, not as, well, here's how you make 7 figures in a business, but like, no, it's really hard, guys. Let's change some things in the system that are making it hard. And also let's build business. Like it's,
Yeah.
both things can be true at once.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I feel like I hope that this podcast is a contributing resource for exactly what you're talking about. Like it's both and and I do think we've talked about this on the podcast quite a lot, but I do personally feel like entrepreneurship still is, this is a tough word for me to say because I know a lot of people are not feeling this at the moment, but I do think it's an easier path
Mm.
to being able to have access to be resourced in capitalism than having a 9 to 5. I think a 9 to 5 is like a corporate role is built to keep you in the
Yeah.
same like place in the social structure. You used the term a cog in the wheel. And I think being in like kind of the corporate capitalist machine as essentially a drone, a worker bee, like part of the kind of factory setup, it's intentionally structured to keep you from having access to healthcare unless you work hard enough, to keep you dependent on like, now of course this is country specific because the United States is still really stuck on this healthcare situation, but
Yeah.
yeah, point being, I still find entrepreneurship as like more of an avenue to some degree of freedom, which is the word you used when we first hopped on this
It's
call
the
before we
only
started
way out.
recording.
It's incredibly challenging, but it's the only way out, right? Like there's a trade-off. You're going to get a certain sense of, I don't know, I guess we call it like right now relative security maybe. And a job like my husband has he's a normie, he's a muggle, 9 to 5 job, but in no other way is he what I would consider normal, but like he's an engineer. So there's like an amount of stability in that, but the potential there is, he's reached it. Like there's nowhere else to go, right? The ceiling is blown off with entrepreneurship, but every step is like asking you to like strip naked and like present yourself to a crowd. I mean, it's incredibly triggering and challenging and difficult, and there's so much weight on you, but I just don't, for me, no other option. Like it's not even a question to me. I'd get a job if I had to, and I've explored it. I've actually gone down the avenue of exploring it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that. I actually encourage people to do that. I hate when people make that a black or white thing. I think a lot of times you use a job, like again, being a chess player, I use this job to help me to be a resource to build the other, right? Like we use these things for the insurance, for whatever. And you need to see it that way, not seeing it as like giving up and da-da. But it's like the cap on what you can do with that is so limited, especially if you're someone like me and you, who's like, I'm not even capable of selling my soul to like corporate capitalism. I couldn't do it even if I wanted to. I was not built that way. So do it that way you will.
It's funny. I think I've become very unemployable, but I will say, and this you talked about education as kind of propaganda, and I think in the spirit of that, I was such a good student. I was so well trained, to be honest. Like straight A student all through K to 12, straight A student in undergrad, double majored, got my master's, like graduated with honors.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was very well trained. I showed up so freaking employable and so hungry and eager. Was willing to work all of the hours. I was willing to put forth all of my talent, all of my gifts, all of my skills, all of my IP towards somebody else and somebody else's vision and somebody else's financial legacy. That whole idea of like, I couldn't sell my soul to corporate capitalism. I absolutely could have and tried to. Like,
I
actively
tried to. I was for sale.
really passionately wanted to. Was like, and then I still lost my job. And the rejection of like, I was willing to sell my soul for you.
Yes.
And you
That's
just handed it back to me.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to think that now.
It does not matter what you're willing to do. You are replaceable.
Yeah.
You are a 0, 1, whatever in the matrix. Like that's all that it is at the end of the day. And like if you zoom out, that's what it is. My quote unquote problem is that when I graduated college with a French degree, I moved to France for a year. And it was in doing that I went, I can never have a normal life. If I hadn't done that, I definitely would be like you, being like, okay, let's do this, because I can hyper focus on being like, same, like great grades, honors college, all of this. But there would be moments where I would blame myself. This is the thing. It's like the system treats you, if something's not working, it's a personal problem. So you need to figure it out. Right. And so what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Well, I was just allergic to that way of functioning. I also had very severe undiagnosed ADHD, but like it was moving to France that gave me a lived experience of something different that made me go, uh-oh, like that was a fork in the road. I could never go back after that.
That's so fascinating. And I want to bring this back to entrepreneurship, because being an entrepreneur doesn't make you immune from that. The guilt, the shame, it's your fault. It's if you want it badly enough. That shows up so much in entrepreneurship. So as much as like
louder.
yeah. Well, it's
obvious.
different, right? So in moving to France and then like, okay, I can never go back. And so now you are an entrepreneur, you're a career entrepreneur. That's what your entire career really has been since this year in France. And so like, how has it shown up for you? Because I mean, there's the
The
obvious, right? Like we know coaches are always saying that to sell their coaching services and this and that. But like for you personally, how has that those same patterns, how does
yeah.
that affect you?
Yeah. Oh my God, that is such a good question, especially because I have very recently, I would say end of April, May, June. So now we're in like early July. I'm just coming out of it, going through a really, really big, I hate all the words around this, but like up leveling, upper limit, like
Quantum leap.
shift, quantum leap, all those things. Like that's like very much so. And really hitting on to the point where I've gotten a new therapist specifically to help me find and work through some of the things that I know are like real, such old childhood, whether they're big T or little T traumas that they're like in the core of who I am as a person. They're not even like a memory. It's just like, well, I was two. Like, it's just how I've always been. Because just, I heard you talking about this on an episode. This imposter syndrome for me shows up very similarly to what you were saying about being messy, being too messy. People knew how much of a mess I was. One of my biggest triggering things is when I bring people onto my team and they're like, wow, you're so organized. I go, no, I'm not. Uh-oh, they think I'm organized. Fuck, what are they going to think when they realize how much I'm not? I'm like,
They'll abandon me. They'll reject me as soon
yeah,
as they know, like I have to somehow keep up this facade, or vice versa. If I'm bringing
just
somebody in to work
torpedo it.
really close to me in my business,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, then I actually want them to know. I
Yep.
want you to know what you're taking on before you agree to do this, before you agree to come work with me. Like, you need to know how much of a
Yes.
mess I actually am. Everything great you already thought about me, that's
Yes.
just because that's what I show you publicly. But if
Yes.
you really knew, would you still want to work with me? You need to
Yeah.
make sure of that before you agree to come on the team. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Relatable.
for me, what happens is then it puts me into see the old version of me to your question, right? Is like, how does that show up now? The older, younger version of me, even in entrepreneurship, because I've been doing this like not half my life, we're getting there, would have been like, oh, I'm avoidant, I'm being lazy. What I've now realized is I'm essentially having a freeze response, right? Which is the nervous system's last ditch effort to stay alive. It'll try all the other things before freeze, because freeze is like, we're just gonna stop. We're not running away from the threat. We're not fighting it. We're just going to play dead. Right. And it took me until about a year ago to even recognize how often I was in a freeze state. I think what's so tricky about freeze states is they're so hard to recognize because it's like the absence of anything. I could tell when I was in a fight state. I could tell I was in a flight state, but at the freeze state, I would go, why can't I can't even think through why I'm doing this? Because my whole brain just shut down. Like the thoughts, I don't even have access to them. And so what I realized is I go into this freeze state. And then when I'm in a freeze state, I just abandon all my responsibilities. And then balls start to drop. And then I feel bad about that. And then I don't want to face that because I'm like, oh, and then because it puts me back in the freeze state. And so I ignore it. And then people think I'm like a terrible person or whatever. And then I've got to go like rebuild my reputation, right? Because I literally once, I want people to know this. Like I don't think I have any like unsolved, I'm sure I have unsolved shit about this, but like I like to share stuff openly because I want people to realize like they're fine. Like they're not crazy. They're not the messiest person ever. I once had a full-time VA. I mean like full-time VA. And in my defense, I gave birth to my son, my second child, a month early. And I just never talked to her again. I paid her for 3 months after I gave birth. I was so incapable of even logging into Slack to be like, here's what's going on, that I just paid her for 3 months and never talked to her again. Like, that's how much I would freeze and abandon. Like, that's how deep that pattern is. And so, like, I now know, so where I'm at now, coming out of this quantum leap, is identifying that that's what's happening and depersonalizing it. To me, it's all of this unlearning the capitalism and the tool and the conditioning is it's not personal. I'm not a inherently flawed person. Every person is perfect the way they are. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do all that. I try to really go, what is the pattern at play here? What is happening? What's the systemic thing going on here? And what is it that's not working for me? And if I can get curious, I can I'm a problem solver. I can diagnose like what's actually going on and come up with solutions. But when we personalize it, we go, I'm lazy, I'm a mess. Then there's no curiosity. You're totally shut down. You cannot solve problems. That's it. What you can't argue with, I'm just lazy. All right, well, I guess that's it then. That's just never what it is. But when you're in that activated state, you just can't see that. It feels very real.
Think too, it's everything you said is so relatable, and I hope that the person listening is thinking that too. But at least we found each other.
Yeah.
I think too, it is easy for me to see in other people. It's easy for me to give grace to other people. It's easy for me to say we're all just doing the best we can. Everybody's trying. I see that this person is trying. I have so much love and yeah, grace for what this person is experiencing, especially like in the United States, the state of things right now, politically, that on its own is so much. And of course, it's not just
Overwhelming.
unique to us,
Yeah.
like we make it everyone else's problem as well, but like just logging online, turning on the news, like it is so freaking draining and exhausting. And so I know that, right? And so when I had a day last week, we're recording this at the beginning of July, but I had a day last week where 3 out of 4 calls no-showed. And I was like, I'm not assuming that means anything about me. That means anything about our relationship. That means anything about this person's character, like, or each of those people's character, right? Like, we are all just doing the best we can. Like, that's it. We're just doing the best we can. It's easy for me to feel that about other people. But in reverse, if I was the one who missed the meeting, the beating myself up that would have happened as a result, like, to be quite honest, let me go back and even use the word, the abuse to myself.
Yeah.
And I have used on this podcast the term like self-flagellation, but I'm even going to go so far
Like
as to
emotional
call it abuse.
Yes.
Yeah,
Abuse.
it's abuse.
Yeah. I don't know what order to put those words in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it is really fascinating because related, and I think I've said this something along these lines on the podcast before, but when I was laid off, when my job was eliminated, the rejection that I felt, which I talked about a little bit ago, even though it really wasn't about me, and everybody said that, right? Business isn't personal. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, number one, that's how I do things differently, right? Like, business is totally personal. It's totally personal. But I understand the concept, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't personal. It wasn't about me. Actually, it was like the 14th person to get laid off from this small business. Like, it was not about me. But for me, it was. For my family, it was. It was very personal. And I had a lot of grief and I had a lot of big emotions about that. And yeah, just a lot of rejection because I am somebody who, and I think a lot of us are like this, who identifies by my work, right? And by my accomplishment, by my achievement. And so to feel like that was handed back to me, like, never mind. We don't need this
exactly what's been
anymore.
in
We
my
don't
head
want
this
you
whole
anymore.
time is it's because it's when it's somebody else, right? It doesn't attack our sense of self, our like entire construct of our identity and who we are and that we exist. And for me, one of those triggering things is being on time. Weirdly, and I think this comes from, it's just like something that my mom did growing up, even though she has ADHD, is like she's always obsessively on time. I'm always on time. For me, if I'm late, it causes me to, it's the one thing I feel like I've got control over and that makes me feel like I'm put together and all this. And if I lose that thing, I spiral in so many other ways. And so it's like there's these bricks we don't realize are so structural to our identity that shouldn't really be, but we didn't intentionally make it that way. It just happened that way.
Yeah.
And that brick gets knocked out and then your sense of self starts to crumble. And you're like, wait a sec, like it's so hard when you consciously know, I know that this isn't my identity. I know this doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't matter because your subconscious, your nervous system is like, but we're gonna die. Like that's such a hard place to be in. And so many of us have been in that place more frequently and more intensely than ever before. Like,
yeah. And I was gonna say this too, which I think fits right in with all of that, is like one of the things that I really felt so strongly in wanting to start my own business and on the heels of that rejection was like, I can't go through that again. I can't put myself out there to go through that again. And it's kind of funny to then choose an entrepreneurship path where I'm the salesperson and I'm actually in a position
constantly
to get rejected
rejected.
like all day, every day. Like rejection happens literally constantly, but it feels different.
Yeah.
And I think there's something, I think it kind of goes back to that concept of like, I was willing to sell my soul. Well, not now. Now I have really good
Yeah.
boundaries. It's sort of like, I always said this about dating, and I still give this advice to my kids. Like, instead of trying so hard to be who you think they want you to be, then when they don't want you, you
Mhm.
failed, right? Then it's about you didn't do a good enough job being who they wanted you to be. And also, if you don't fail and they do want that person, then you have to work that hard to be that version of what they want forever. If you're just you, you're just authentically who you want to be, how you want to be, living life the way you want to live. Then when someone rejects you, it still sucks. It still
Mhm.
hurts. It doesn't feel good, but at least you know
That person's not it for
they're not for
you.
me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and if they weren't gonna want me for me, then this was never gonna work, right? And so I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of the same thing with work. Like,
It's exactly the same thing because it's essentially if you are showing up in the world as a certain whatever version you're showing up in, you're going to attract people, situations, experiences, etc. that are attracted to that. And if that isn't you, now you're dealing with I mean the amount of masking and energy that takes, right? If it's so hard to make that shift, right? Because I've had to do that at times where I go, "Oh my god," and then everything kind of crumbles and that's really terrifying. But then you start to attract the things that are so easy flowing because they're the things attracted to just who you are, just being yourself.
yeah,
So
yeah,
much easier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to come back to this quantum leap that
Yeah.
you have been
Yeah.
experiencing over the past few months, because same. And it, in
Okay.
some ways it makes
Good.
sense. Like, we talked about before we hit record, I feel like I'm in sort of what I'm calling like the 7-year itch of business. And I was like, oh, you probably know what I'm talking about because you have more years of experience in business than me. And you're like, I'm just going through part 2 of
My
that. Like,
yeah, it's just my
literally
14,
like
15.
the
Yeah.
next 7 years.
Yeah.
Similarly, too, we're also the same age. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably also not a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, not only is it 7 years in business and then another 7 years in business, but it's also like life stage. That also makes sense. So
Totally.
both of
Yeah.
those things are true. So, anyways, like, hey friend, that's you in the other room going through this like
Totally.
whole shift. And but what I'm curious about, because one thing that I've been told about this podcast is like, hey, you open these cans of worms and I'm right there with you. And I'm like, yeah, you just helped me unpack all this stuff. Like, okay, but now I've unpacked, so I've got this mess all around me, and like, what
Exactly.
the hell do I
Yeah.
do with it? So I'm curious, in this quantum leap for you, like, as you're looking at the second half of 2026 and beyond, like,
Mhm.
how are you using what you've been experiencing for the past few months? Like, how's that gonna what's your what's your plan? What's your strategy? What's your vision?
Yeah.
Whatever. What's your gut
Yeah.
telling you of how you can then use this in carrying into the next chapter?
Yeah. Okay. This is cool because I don't know that I've really figured that out yet. So I'm gonna just riff because I think you're
Yeah,
gonna get the most raw,
the biggest and bravest.
yeah, well, exactly. There we go. So so just to like spitball off the top of my head, the things that have been coming up for me are before I had kids, had I hate the term work life balance, but I was pretty good at it. If anything, I was more on the side of relaxing a lot and doing what I wanted. And there were things I'm like, I could have worked a little more diligently to just get myself to a better place. But I just have always prioritized what I want now. And that's what I did. And then something happened when I had kids, which makes sense, right? Is that I just feel like I have to make the most of everything. And I've become this person, or I had become, let me put it past, who I couldn't sit down and I couldn't relax at all. It was so weird for me to not be able to access something that for me was so easy second nature for me before. That was really weird. I'm really grateful that I've gotten to experience both ends of that spectrum because now I feel like I can relate to the people who are kind of more on the workaholic side and I can understand that more. Whereas before I was like, I don't get it. But I'm really trying now to integrate all of that. And one of the things I've realized is I'm just really owning who I am at another level more purely, and exactly what you were saying about the dating and being who you are and all that. It's that exact idea of just being a lot more raw about I'm not trying to perform more things than I'm just owning that zone of genius more and more and more and more, like acutely and very specifically. So here's like some examples. I'm so terrible at anything that takes a long period of time to execute. And I also will never finish anything. And I'm terrible at anything that requires maintenance. So I still have not finished my 2025 taxes. I had to get a new accountant. I got a new accountant. It's now been like 2 or 3 months that we've been going back and forth with email. And he's just like, Courtney, I need this. Courtney, I need that. And I cannot with that. I told him, I said, we need to book a meeting because I need to do one sitting. We hammer it out. It's done. Like if you need follow up, then you go to my ops manager, you go to my husband. They're great at that stuff. I will never think about this thing ever again. So I'm a level 10 quick start in the Colby index. I'm trying to own that, but also not weaponize it. Like, well, I'll just quick start all this random stuff. And I'm trying to see where that fits into the bigger picture and then lean on the support more. So in my business, I have an operations manager who's fantastic. So one thing we're doing is I just struggle with any kind of schedule at all. And I mean, my ADHD is just out of control. So she's sending me every day a daily brief of exactly what's on my schedule and anything she needs from me. And she's putting it in Slack. And it's just like, then she checks in on it with me. She's basically hand-holding me to make sure I do my tasks. I'm just like, I need you to be my boss. I can't be someone's boss. I'm a leader, not a manager. Like I will lead, inspire, like grow, all that. But if I've got to manage something, it's just never going to happen. And then I'm really trying to lean in on letting myself work in really intense spurts. And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like because I'm not 100% sure, but less about me trying to have this like consistent schedule and more about going, okay, what would it look like if I let myself just be a little like wackadoodle a couple days a week and just go my mad scientist mode where I'm just like amped up on Diet Coke and McDonald's, and then I can take the rest of the week off or something. So those are some things I'm experimenting with. I'm also going to be I'm changing my business model, which is really scary. I'm going from high ticket coaching to a membership model. So I could not be going I'm like just on the other end of the spectrum more, but I had this vision and this idea 6 months ago that I just cannot let go of. And I have ideas every day, but when I can't let go of something, I'm like, okay, this is it. So that's also what I'm going to be focusing on and just letting myself do that. When I went through this quantum leap, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is I think when you go through a quantum leap, I very much relate to feeling like everything is falling apart and really losing my self-confidence and my self-trust, which is very scary for me because I have a lot of self-confidence and a lot of self-trust and feeling like I've lost my compass. And so I feel like I've got that back and then I'm fine. I can handle anything. But when I lose my compass, it's like terrifying.
100%. I think that's exactly what it is. And I think what we're calling quantum leap, I feel like those happen when you lose yourself. You kind of have to lose yourself and then realize, oh shit, I'm lost in order to be like, okay, getting back on track feels like a quantum leap then, because it's like, okay, wait, like
everything feels hard. Everything, everything is questioned. I always call them my goo eras because it's like a caterpillar, when it forms a chrysalis, it doesn't just sprout wings. It literally turns into goo and then reformats itself into a butterfly. So every time I'm doing this, I'm like, it's a goo era. It's a goo era. That's what I try to tell myself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to think of it. Like it really paints a picture. So for me, I feel like what I hope to take into this like kind of next chapter, next season of business and life is twofold and related, right? Because of course it is, because it always is. But I think it's two things, and I'm interested to see how they sort of shape up to shape what things look like. But one, and they go together. One is, what do I want my day to look like? As in, like, what do I want to wake up and get to do? Like, what do I want this season of my life, this season of my business? Like, what is it? What do I want my life to look like? And this really comes on the heels of, as we were talking about before I hit record and have talked a bit about on this podcast, like building this whole offer and building this whole side of my business that was for scaling specifically. And then when it needed to pause. That's the easiest way to put it. When it needed to pause and pump the brakes, I was actually like, oh, thank God. And then I realized, like, I don't want to be who I would need to be, and I don't want to live the way I would need to live in order to run a business that looks like that. Like, I don't want to do that.
And now
That's
you
not
know
what I
that.
want to do.
Now
Yeah,
you
thank
know that
God.
in your like bones.
Yes,
You know
yes.
that. You
Thank
don't
God.
have to
And thank
wonder.
God I realized it as
Yeah.
quickly as I did, because I think some people, and like last week or a couple of weeks ago, I had a guest on who was sharing her own version that like it got way further carried away. The train went way further down the track, and like I'm so glad. But yeah, so what do I want? What do I want it to look like? And I'm really chasing that. Like this morning, I woke up like an hour before my alarm, which was really nice. And
Me too.
that's
Oh my God,
funny.
I know when that happens, I'm like, I like mornings that happens like that.
And I literally was like, yeah, that's nicer than the alternative. And then I literally was like, you know what I want to do? I have a really long day of meetings, like big things, because Big Brave Wednesdays, when I'm recording multiple podcast episodes and we're having these kind of conversations, like it takes a lot from
It's
me, right?
great, but it's exhausting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so I was like, before I dig into this, I'm gonna like sit down and play the Switch, and I'm gonna play like Talia. I don't know. Shout out to anybody who likes a cozy game. It's free on the Switch, which is nice. The Switch is not free, but the game is free.
No, I really want to
So
get a Switch for my household. Or
we
like,
just upgraded to a Switch 2 after like hemming and hawing about it for
yeah.
months, and like so I've been
I
playing
think
the shit
it's
out of it
such
to
a
make
great way to
that
relax and like,
truly, yes. And so that's what it was. Like I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna
mhm.
totally relax before I jump into like a big brain day. And what a nice way to like spend the morning. And in fact, like my partner came out of the room. He slept in later than me. He came out of the room and was like, "Oh wow, you're like up." And he was like, "Wait, I had pulled like our cozy recliner into the center of the room. I had the like tower fan pointing straight at me. I had a drink. Like I was
Yeah.
like
Tell me that's not success, people.
literally right,
Like
right,
the
right." Oh yeah, thank you
hormozes.
for saying that.
Tell
Yeah.
me, come side by side.
That's what
I
my
choose your
Wednesday
version
morning looked like.
any
Yes.
day of the week. Yeah,
He
that
came
is.
out, he was like, "Hello, like you've
Yeah,
got a whole setup." I'm like, "Yes, I do." And it feels fucking great. So
so
on
good.
that note, the other like piece of this twofold thing, in addition to what do I want my day to
Yeah, the
look like,
flip
what do I want to
side.
get up to do, is I want to play. Like I want to have fun and I want to chase the fun. And so like my favorite thing I've ever done in my business, like as far as the most fun I've ever had, was this offer called Podcast Launch Prep Week. And I talked about it a lot on the podcast last year. I like kind of came up with it on a whim at the end of 2025. And then we really shelved it because in its original form, like it wasn't bringing in the ideal client for what the offer was and blah blah, and like how do we navigate this. And so we just shelved the whole thing, and I'm like, no, you know what, I thought it was fun, and who cares if like
Yeah.
what it brings in is somewhere
I
between
think if you
1500
follow
and like
that,
yeah.
that's what leads you to the thing. I think that's just back to that
And
self-trust.
literally
And
in
yeah,
December, it made on its own, Podcast Launch Prep Week made $1,500. Okay. And it was a beta rate. It was low. It was really low enrollment, but like that's okay because it was just
yeah,
a beta test for round one. But it was also December. It was going into Christmas. I have 3 kids and they're grown and they're significant others, plus my partner, plus anybody else in my life I want to buy gifts for because I love to buy gifts.
yeah.
And so like $1,500 extra in December. First of all, I had a blast doing it. It was the most fun I've ever had
Which is
in
number one.
business.
Yeah.
And I made 1,500 extra dollars from 1 week of work that didn't even feel like work. It felt like fun to then go be able to put into Christmas. And so that's what I want to do. So we're bringing it back. It's just going to look a little different because it's going to be geared toward people who will be DIYers, who will be self-produced. That's what I call it. Like,
Which I think a lot more and more people are
yep, there's
exploring.
a market for that right now.
Yeah.
There's an economic demand for it, but even still, like I loved it. I loved it. So I'm going to chase that. And I think that's
Which
kind
should
of
be
what you're
rule
doing
number
too.
one, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, we want to be strategic and all that, but again, going back to like keeping the main thing the main thing. And of course, we all want to hit like these goals and numbers and all that, and it is super fun. I love strategy. My brain is all strategy all the time, but not at the expense of joy, fun, play, all those things.
Not everything can be fun. We still have to pay taxes. We still have to go to the dentist. We still have to do that stuff.
Exactly.
But I want to chase the fun. I don't want to chase the misery. That's a corporate 9 to 5. Like, no, thank you. I want to chase the fun. That's what I want to do with my personal life, with my business life, with my personal relationships, my business relationships. Like, I want it to be fun. That's what I always tell people when they're starting a podcast too, is like, whatever your goals are, like we're going to talk about what the goals are that matter to you and how we're going to measure that ROI. But one of the goals has to be that it's fun. It has to be fun. If your podcast isn't fun, you're not going to keep doing it. So if I want that for my clients, like, wait, I want that for me too. I want it to be fun. I want to enjoy what I do. This is my one sweet, precious life. And if COVID taught us anything, it's that tomorrow is not promised, right? So like, I want to live life now. I don't want to suffer now with the hope I get to live life later. Like, no, I want it now. And so I'm embracing that. And I'm embracing that in the small ways, like waking up and playing the Switch. So that's what like I'm taking into this next chapter is like, no, who do I want to be? And like you said, it's like I'm refocused now on like who the fuck I already am. I already know that. I already know that.
Yes, it's more about
really lost it.
Stripping away the conditioning, because I think what we want is already in there. It's just getting to it. I just went through this book called The Life Audit. I cannot remember the author right now, but one of the main activities of the book is that you get a pile or 5 of sticky notes and you make a list, not a list, but like you get 100 stickies and you write something you want, a wish for your life on, you fill 100 of them. And then you start to group them together. And I've done things like this a lot. I found this to be such an enlightening activity to see what really actually matters to me. And it was so cool. So that's one thing I did during this time to really get back to, oh yeah, I'm still the Courtney who started her business while living in Paris and wanted freedom. I'm still her. I'm still her. And yes, I have a mortgage and 2 kids and like all this now, but I still need to prioritize what matters to me, not all this other gunk that I have subconsciously absorbed from being in other people's space and just being in the online business space in general. And I just think that is such a healthy thing for everybody to do, is to just go back and remember, why are you doing this?
Totally. Yeah. I love this. And so I think like, hopefully if you're listening to this, there's a lot of like meditation questions or journaling questions, or like just have dinner with your girlfriends or jump on a Zoom call or whatever to explore. And if you're like, I wish that I had somebody in my life that I could explore some of these questions with, hey, you are enthusiastically invited into either of our DMs. Courtney's bio and links to connect with her and my links to connect with me are all going to be in the description of the episode. Genuinely, like, we would love to have this conversation with you. If you can relate to any of this, if you're experiencing any of this, if you want to explore any of these concepts about yourself, like, hey, yes,
it helps us feel less alone too, right?
Yes, literally. Like, tell us it's not just us.
Else. Great, like good. Like, you, just the way that you might feel validated hearing this, we feel right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And if you're exploring, if you're in the messy part, like, you can also rest assured of how messy we are. Like, Courtney literally never talked to her VA again. Believe us, you are not messy enough that you will put us off. Like, please come and talk to us. We would love to chat with you. And yeah, all that information will be in the description. Courtney, thank you so much for being here. I've loved this conversation. This has been so fun. And like, we're definitely friends now.
No, thank you, Sarah. This is great. What a great way to like kick off our newfound friendship. I love it.
Totally. And we will definitely be doing this on the podcast again. I can't wait to have you back and just to continue to check in of like, hey, what are you exploring now? And like, how's it showing up now?
Oh, I will like always share. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, to find out how the membership is going, because changing your entire business model is huge. So like, we'll definitely keep chatting on the podcast, but I look forward to that. And to you listening, thank you so much for being here as well. It is truly an honor and a privilege, and we'll see you right here next week.